The latest expansion of NATO has greatly damaged the security situation in the whole of Europe, according to Russia. Finland's decision to join NATO will have a negative effect on its relationship with Russia. Finland finalized the process of joining NATO on Tuesday. This was Russia's defense minister, Sergei Shoigu, earlier this week.
Some of the Belarusian assault aircraft have gained the ability to strike enemy targets with nuclear weapons. In addition, the Iskander-M tactical missile system has been transferred to the Belarusian forces. It can use missiles, both conventional and nuclear versions. From April 3rd, training of Belarusian army has begun on using Iskander-M for the protection of the Union state.
A spokesperson for the foreign ministry said it used to be one of the most stable regions in the world and pointed out that the border between NATO and Russia has more than doubled over the past few years. Not only has joining NATO hurt Finland internationally, it also has hurt it domestically. Petri Krohn is a geopolitical analyst based in Helsinki, Finland. He's also an anti-fascist researcher and writer. We spoke with him from Helsinki on Wednesday.
What is happening in Finland right now is very similar to the events in the Baltic states in 1940, when they voluntarily joined the Soviet Union. The Estonian parliament voted unanimously to ask for becoming a member state of the Soviet Union. There was, in very many ways, similar, that there is hardly any opposition to the NATO membership. People are having parties. And of course, the context in both cases is the war. But the difference is, the point is that later, in modern times, the Baltic people are speaking about the Soviet occupation. As if they themselves voluntarily joining the Soviet Union somehow became an occupation. And in many ways, the way I see the NATO membership is a kind of NATO occupation of Finland that has in fact been going on for almost 10 years. The interesting question is how Finland was taken over by NATO without the people ever being asked.
That is an interesting question.
Okay, this is kind of background.
Right.
This has been a 10-year process, at least 10 years, and it has started with a total totalitarian takeover of the Finnish media. All newspapers, media were unanimous in pushing the agenda for NATO membership. At first it was directly, then more and more openly, and the last 2 years it has been total anti-Russian hysteria. The people were never officially asked, but they were spoon-fed an anti-Russian agenda. And now, after membership, most people seem to be celebrating the membership. The opposition, there is very little vocal opposition and absolutely no parliamentary opposition. And this can be seen in the parliamentary elections last Sunday, less than a week ago, when all parties, most anti-NATO candidates that had been working in the old parties, they got less than 2% of the vote altogether. The new government will be at least as anti-Russian, pro-US, pro-NATO than the old government.
Yeah, what do you think will be the effects of the joining of NATO on the people of Finland?
What I would like to say is that NATO membership is devastating for Finland in three reasons: for security, for economy, and for civil rights. On the security issue, I do not think that the membership, the reason why Finland suddenly joins NATO, it is not for Finnish security. The membership serves American geopolitical interests, or what you Americans call national security, maintaining and building empire. On the Finnish side, the main reason, the main motivation actually is the desire to defeat Russia and help Ukraine. People see this as some kind of revenge for the Finnish loss in the Second World War. It's a revanchist agenda.
We're seeing in the Baltics and, of course, in Ukraine, a resurgence of not just fascism, but actual Nazism. Is there anything comparable in Finland?
Not directly comparable, but what has happened Eastern Europe is that the political forces that during the Second World War were compromised because of their collaboration with the Nazi occupiers have returned to power. And as a result, they have completely rewritten the history. They speak about Soviet occupation, when in fact, like the Baltic states, they de facto voluntarily joined the Soviet Union. In the Baltics, in Estonia, that has a great influence on Finland, they practice what I would like to call an apartheid policy. After independence, Soviet citizens and Soviet Estonian citizens of Russian origin were stripped of their citizenship. And to legalize this policy of apartheid, they created a rewritten history about their suffering as a result of Soviet occupation. But this anti-Russian agenda has moved over the Gulf of Finland and has been dominating Finnish thinking for about the last 15 years. Of course, as part of this agenda is you could say, glorification of these Nazi collaborators in Estonia, in the Baltic states. Finland has right-wing groups, populist right-wing groups, and even national socialist groups. But up to now, they don't have anti-Russian agenda. In fact, many of the Finnish so-called patriots are very pro-Russian. Like the populist True Finns party that won in the latest election and most likely be part of the future government, they have been split between pro-NATO, anti-Russian fractions and some kind of patriotic, more moderate, peaceful fractions. The previous government, the kind of a left-wing government led by the Social Democrats, was very pro-NATO and, in fact, very supportive of Ukraine, sending 10 different batches of arms, including Leopard 2 tanks, to Ukraine. But the new government most likely will be as much pro-US, pro-NATO. It will be formed by the winner, the Conservative Party, which has always been pro-NATO, and the True Finns, which now are 200 years of peaceful times, and then we had 800 years of history and prehistory of constant wars with Russia.
Right.
So it looks like Finland has thrown overboard all the political wisdom they have gained over 200 years of statehood.
So much for the question of whether or not NATO is good for Finland's security. Also, you raised the question about what are the impacts for economics and for civil rights.
On the economic front, NATO membership and the whole economic war against Russia is devastating for Finland. I would calculate that the economic losses may be 50 billion euros or dollars in the short run, maybe 100 billion in the long run. Finland has greatly benefited from its trade with Russia. In fact, much of the Finnish industry was built on Soviet trade. Finland has direct railway link to China and has become a hub for Chinese commerce, the Silk Road. The Finnish airline, Finnair, its main business was in the Asia market, direct flights to China, Japan, Asia over Russian airspace. All of this has now been abandoned. Instead, we are investing billions in new arms, new weapons, mainly American weapons, fighter jets and rockets, and preparing for war. The third point, civil liberties. Finland has been one of the most stable democracies in the world, and we had a freedom of press. Finland always scored top points in comparisons in these fields, and we still have a very healthy welfare state. But this was the result of a very pluralistic political system with right-wing parties, left-wing communist parties. But all of this is now becoming history. Of course, the press is now totally under centralized control. But what will be getting with NATO is this US-style surveillance state. What I have noticed is that people from the democratic free press, they are afraid to speak or write about political issues online under their own names. And this is the difference between Finland and NATO countries. I've never been afraid to publicly state my opinions, but under NATO memberships, I'm afraid that this will no longer be possible.
Well, if one looks to Ukraine for an example, I'd have to say I agree with you. Thank you so much for your time, and we hope to speak with you again soon, Petri.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you. For KPFK, I'm Don DeBar.